Okay, Jim, well, thank you for agreeing to join me in one of my Meet the Experts webinars. Perhaps you
You're
could
very welcome.
tell us a little bit about yourself and your business and how you came to be an expert on social media, if you would.
Yeah, certainly. Well, I haven't always been an expert on social media, and I can class myself as a bit of a social media skeptic when I first started, which meant that when I did decide to take on board what was going on, I really had to go and do a lot of research and find out the best practice. So when I first set up my business, it was all about building websites for people, and I guess social media was just beginning and was a bit of a fad, really, and nobody was sure whether businesses were going to benefit from it. And as I just said, I was a skeptic, and I couldn't understand, especially things like Twitter, why anybody would want to put out 140 characters and how that would do any good for their business. But I kept getting messages from everybody saying, you know, this is really good, this is really going to change things, and people were reporting successes, and I thought, you know what, I've got to work this out. I've got to find out whether this is for real. So I set myself the task of finding out as much as I could about social media and then putting it into practice in my business. And only when I started to get success and started to get clients and customers that I thought, yes, I know a bit about this now and I can generate income from it, and therefore felt confident that I could start teaching it to other people as well. So that's where I've come from. I always think, really, if you want to teach something, yes, you really need to learn it pretty well yourself in the first place.
Yeah, I think that's useful because a lot of people have still got the perception of social media as the teenagers in the bedroom wasting time on Facebook. So I guess you've still got to convey to a few people. So why bother with social media? And I think you've answered that really, because it can be good for your business.
The bottom line is, yes, the bottom line is you need to be there. There are some startling statistics about the number of people who are on social media. So for example, as I put there, the 750 tweets per second are shared on Twitter. That's quite a mind-blowing figure, and that I'm sure is going up all the time. 2 new members sign up to LinkedIn every second. So you can see that these things are growing at a real rate of knots. And the new kid on the block, if you like, Pinterest, and that allegedly drives more referral traffic than YouTube, Google Plus and LinkedIn combined. So Pinterest is another one that needs to be, you need to keep an eye on it, really. And then of course the big one, Facebook, 901 million monthly active users. So I think we can safely say that there are a few people out there who may be interested in what we're doing, and therefore it's a market that every business needs to tap, or at least investigate.
Yeah, that's so. Which social media do you think you should concentrate on? Because obviously is it LinkedIn? Is it Facebook? Is it Twitter? Is it a combination? Is it depend on what type of business you are? What's the strategy?
Definitely depends on what sort of business you're in. If basically your audience are out there somewhere, and they may not be out there looking for your business, because a lot of social media is just that, social. But it is important in these days that where Google ranking means a lot to the vast majority of businesses, that you have a presence on all of the major social networking sites so that your profile comes up there. Who you choose, which are the ones you choose to go with or focus your energy depends very much on your strategy, as you said, and that leads into the 5 Ps that we're going to talk about social media. But it certainly isn't these days the teenagers wasting time in their bedrooms. It's a lot of, well, they still are. There's also an awful lot of older people who are also wasting time on social media, and that's one of the major pitfalls.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a perception, especially in my mind, that Facebook's obviously good for pure social and it's good for corporates who have a brand and they're trying to build brand loyalty. But I just wonder where, in terms of SMEs and being in the middle of that scenario, where there's benefit and how you create the benefit. Talking about
To
Facebook
me, it's
in
all
particular.
about, yeah, I mean, well, Facebook and Twitter really, but it's all about building a relationship with people, and it's showing people what you are like as a person, because most people do most business with people that they already know, like and trust, or think that they know, like and trust, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
Because I've certainly done business with people through social media that I've never met. So I don't know them, but I know enough about them to know that they will do a good job for me. So it's an interesting dynamic. I mean, you and I met through networking, and that's still very valid, but this is an online version of that networking. So a lot of the same principles apply, in that you don't go into to any networking meeting and start handing out your cards and saying, here I am, I'm wonderful, come and buy from me, because that'll be the biggest turn-off in the world. And that's exactly the same online. What you do is you start talking about the weather, or how you got there, or what your business is like, or, you know, and then you develop onto other things. So it's really about that building a relationship. That's the key element, I think, with social media, and of course it is called social. So you have to be a bit social about it.
Yes, I think I told you the story, didn't I, where that when I first, a couple of years ago, first dipped into social media and I was a bit too prone to sell, and then I had someone who unfollowed me and said, well, you haven't told me anything about yourself, so why should I follow you, you know, in terms of who you are and personality and your ethos, etc. So that's a good example of that, isn't it, really?
It is, but then sometimes people go to the other extreme. I tried to link up with somebody on LinkedIn, and we are in a shared group, and it's quite a small shared group, so I thought, well, I'll link up with this person. Made sense to me. And they came back to me and said that they wouldn't link up with me if I didn't mind, because they were in Bournemouth, I think, and because I was in the Midlands, we would never meet, and therefore there was no point. I did think they maybe missed the point. You know, I wasn't on a dating site at this point. It was so I thought, fine, it's probably we won't be doing any business together anyway. You know, that is such a narrow view to my mind as well, because really it doesn't matter where in the country you are. You may have connections, you may have opportunities to do business or to help each other, which is what it's about. So for him to say, no, I only link up with people that I have actually met, was to me very short-sighted. But on the other hand, I do think, particularly with LinkedIn, you need to be putting a personal message when you're trying to link up with people, which I had done, and explain why you think there would be a good reason for people to join up. So many times I get messages on LinkedIn saying, I'd like to add you to my network, from complete random strangers. And I think, well, why? Why are you doing that? And to some people it's just a numbers game. They are trying to get as many people following them on LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook as possible. But to me it is more about quality than quantity.
I think that's a mistake some people make. They just start off in social media thinking it's, and the web to some extent, thinking it's a numbers game, but they quickly realise that it isn't. It's about engagement, isn't it? Really, not like any sort of networking.
Exactly. Apparently the average Facebook user has 130 friends. I think that's interesting, because the teenagers will have hundreds of friends, and then there will be some people who keep it very limited. So it probably is about 130 average. But can you engage really with 130 people? Not all at the same time. that's the answer. But you know, you can strive to give value to different groups of people, which I think is again important.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. In the guest blog you wrote for from Bradley and Associates, you talked about the stages you need to go through when thinking about social media. So can you talk us through these steps?
Of course. So it's what I call the 5 Ps, but it starts with thinking about how everything fits together. Now, I would always suggest that you need to put your blog or your website right at the centre of all your activity. For 2 reasons. One, because if you're putting something out on your blog, you might as well reuse it as many times as possible. So you can link it automatically, or automagically, as I like to say, to Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google+, YouTube, etc. Pinterest, not quite so easy to push it out from the blog, but you can certainly have links so that all your content can be shared by other people. So there are 2 things. One, you need to be sharing your content from your blog, and 2, you need to make it easy for other people. So if they come on there and they like something, they can just click a button and it goes out to their followers. So that's a way to grow your followers as well. Because if I go onto your site, Robert, and I see something that's of particular interest to sole traders, and I know lots of sole traders, and I'll think, yeah, that's a good idea, and I'll say, yes, I like it on Facebook, or retweet a tweet of yours on Twitter, and it goes out to my followers. Now the chances are, if they find value in it, they will then start following you as well. So that's a really good way of thinking about it all being joined up. So with that sort of in the back of your mind about how we can do that, let's get on to the five Ps. So the first one is all about planning. So you've got to think about who your ideal client or customer are. So get a really good idea about what they are like. Age, sex, what they're, other things that they're likely to like. So places they might hang out, groups, where do they congregate. So the example here is that if, for example, you are targeting teenagers, then chances are you wouldn't be focusing your attention on Twitter, although that seems to be changing slightly. But my daughters, a couple of years ago, would never have ever considered going on Twitter. They can't understand it. And my one daughter, each time she sees me on Twitter, calls me a stalker. So that's where she's coming from. But the other thing I'd say is don't assume you know where they are. Check it out. Find out. Go and have a look. And the example I use here is that on one of my courses, there was a lady who she made and sold coats for dogs, handmade custom dog coats, and she was asking me where she should put her energy, which are the social media she should focus on. And in the same breath as asking me, she said, but Twitter's no good, is it? Because that's all business people. So I said, well, let's have a look. And I went onto onto LinkedIn and searched the groups. And we found, I can't even remember how many, but lots and lots of different groups that people had set up all to talk about dogs. So these people were all dog owners or people who loved dogs, who would set up groups within LinkedIn, which is, a business social network, you would think. And so we then looked at how many people. One of the groups had over 20,000 people in it. So at that point, do you think that LinkedIn might be an idea for people who want to sell items to dog owners? So, and I think she agreed that she was about to set up her LinkedIn profile and get in those groups.
That's interesting.
It is. It's we've got these ideas in our head. People are always telling me, "Oh, but my customers, my clients aren't on Facebook." They probably are, in some capacity, or the rest of their family are.
Yeah, in the context
So,
in context of family, that's the one place they're probably almost guaranteed to be on Facebook in some form or other.
exactly. Well, it's why I originally went on Facebook, just so I could see pictures of my daughter that she'd put up. She doesn't live at home anymore. And she said to me, "Oh, I put it on Facebook several years ago now." So, oh, Facebook, don't want to be bothered with that. But that's the reason I joined to start with, just so I could do that. So that there will be lots of people who are on Facebook. Now, it may not be that you want to spend a lot of time on there if your clients and customers aren't spending their time on there a lot. But I still think it is worth having a business page for every business. Because again, it's another, what's known as a web property, another place where you can put your information. And the more places you can put your name and your brand and your web address and details all over the web, the better. Because when people are searching for you, you need to be Googleable. And when you put your name in, you want to come as high up as possible. Obviously, if your name's Jane Smith, you're going to have a problem. But within reason, that's what you need to do. And when I first set up this business, I'd had my job before. I did a lot of online stuff. So when I first started my business, if you put my name in to Google, all my other activities would come up. So I had to very quickly replace that with the Just Ask Jean stuff. And the way to do that was to go onto lots of different social media and put lots of things up that had my name in it. So that's a bonus tip for you. That I wasn't planning on talking about that, but
That's a bit of a gem, thank you.
it is a good idea to get your name in as many places as possible. Okay, so and the other thing you need to think about when you're planning is how much time do you have to do all this stuff? And generally, nobody has enough time to do all this stuff. So, but it does need to be planned in. You do need to plan in your social media activity in the same way that you would plan in any other marketing activity. Does that make sense so far?
Yes, it's interesting. Just going back, if I may, to a few screens ago, they do say that you shouldn't share your updates across all your social media. So, but it's still okay to share your blog, is it? Can you see the distinction I'm making there? In terms of,
well, the point is that you're going to send stuff out from your blog, but you want people to come back because I'm guessing the ultimate aim is to get people onto your website or your blog to either find your phone number and call you or sell something to them.
yeah, well, especially myself is a good example because my website is primarily a blog anyway. So
yeah,
so
exactly.
Blog driven.
So when you say that you shouldn't share across all your social media activity, where I'm not quite sure where you're coming from.
Well, people don't want to see your Twitter all over your LinkedIn all the time, and people get annoyed if you.
I think, yeah, and I think you're right. I think that goes down to identifying your clients and also segregating what you're doing. So generally, say Twitter onto Facebook is okay because they're similar audiences, and then people might see it twice, but as long as you don't overuse it, I don't think that's a problem. LinkedIn have actually turned off the facility, so you can't do from Twitter to LinkedIn anymore. Because to me, LinkedIn is much more focused and about business. It's much less social than Twitter and Facebook.
Yeah, I see.
So I think, yes, I put that as the hub. We can go back.
Yeah.
There we go. So we can go back there. I've put it at the centre there. But it's actually giving you the facility to push it out to all those places. But you don't need to. You can then choose. But if you've got a blog, when we come on later on to talk about automation, having that blog there gives you a really good basis so that you can work smarter rather than harder.
Yes,
It gives you something that's already you can talk about what's on your blog to the other ones. So I think you're right. I think you don't want to just do it willy-nilly. but having it at the centre there gives you the facility to do it.
Yeah, I see. It's just think about it, but it's there if you, as and when you want to do it. Permutations
Exactly.
of it.
Some of it you might, some of it you might want to do in an automated fashion, which we'll talk about as well in a second.
Okay,
I'm
thanks.
Come out so
Thanks
I can go to. Where have we got to? Okay, so let's. So we've had planning. It's important to plan, as is any marketing activity. Well, as is anything in your business, really. And it needs to be. Social media needs to be part of your overall marketing strategy. And then you need to think about the purpose, or why are you doing it? You know, what's the point? Because it's very easy to get sucked into social media and making lots of friends and getting lots of followers. But you really need to think about why you're doing it. So that might be that you're looking for new prospects. So you could be using social media partly to push people towards a squeeze page or a lead generation page where you're getting them to exchange their details for something of value that you're giving them. So that could be a top tips booklet, it could be a mini course, it could be a video, all sorts of things. It could be partly that you just want new business, you want sales. But bear in mind the caveat I mentioned earlier on, that you don't want to be constantly selling. So if your only purpose is to make sales, that's okay, but you've got to do everything as well. You've got to wrap it up, if you like, which is the fourth one round, which is about connecting and engaging. I put with customers, which is a very key point, but connecting and engaging with prospective customers and clients. And the one I would say that was probably least useful for most SMEs is building a brand, because marketing to build your brand can be expensive. Likes of Coca-Cola, etc., fine, but likes of little old me and you, do we really want to build a brand? No, but what we do want to do is be seen as the local expert. So that's another way of looking at, and that is in fact another reason that maybe I should have mentioned there. So that's a good reason. You know, you go onto social media, you might be, say if you wanted to do that, you could start looking for people who have got problems in your particular area of expertise and helping them. So I've done that. I've found people who are having problems with WordPress websites, which is what I mainly focus on, and I give them a bit of free advice, and sometimes I never hear from them again, and sometimes they turn into paying clients. And they are paying clients that I would never have had if I hadn't spent 5 minutes solving their little problem. Does that make sense as well?
Yeah, something's interesting. I've tried doing that with IR35, which is, as you know, is a speciality of mine around tax status and one-man companies, but I tend to find other advisors' updates rather than getting to the people who got the problems. Is it because I'm looking in the wrong place and I should be looking in groups, not on Twitter hashtags? Is it down to where I look to find those people, the actual contractors themselves?
Possibly. I mean, it could be that you're looking for a very specific problem, whereas you could maybe look at other things they would be tweeting about. So it might be more of a slightly more indirect approach with you. So for me, it's easy. If somebody writes help and WordPress in the same tweet, then I'm guessing they know, you know, that's what they want. They want help with their WordPress. Tearing my hair out is another good one.
Okay.
But it could be that if you know the sorts of people that would benefit from your expertise, you could start targeting them to follow.
Yeah, okay, so find other contractors on the Twitter who I could follow and then listen for what they're talking about.
Yeah, and certainly on LinkedIn it's easier to do that, isn't it, with the groups within LinkedIn.
Yeah, okay, thanks, that's a useful tip.
Okay, so we've had planning and purpose. And now we're on to what I've inverted commas called policy, because I'll let you into a little secret. There are no rules. People are always asking me at my workshops, how many times should I tweet a day? How many times should I write my blog post? How many Facebook friends should I aim for? There are no rules. There are only guidelines, but these are, let me just, if I come down to these, the guidelines I would say are to do with your testing and measuring. Find out what works or what doesn't work. And again, if I can give an example, this happened to me about 6 months ago now. I have a system on my WordPress blog that it will send out one of my older posts. So something that's already gone out, and it will automatically send it out without me interfering at all onto Twitter. And it was doing that quite happily for several months, and then just before Christmas, for some unknown reason, it went a little crazy, and it started tweeting old posts about 10 times a day. And I thought, well, I didn't realise to start with, but what I did notice was that I was getting a lot more retweets. People were taking my tweets that had already been out there before and posting them onto their followers. And I was also getting more followers. But on the flip side of that, I also had a lot of people unfollowing me. So overall, it wasn't a very good thing. And it was only when I realised this that I stopped doing it and sorted it out, and that's fine. But how many times you tweet is down to how useful your tweets are. Because if somebody is sending you really, really useful information that is going to make you money in your business, or save you money in your business, or take the stress out of your life, or give you peace of mind, then they're not bothered about how many times you send it out. Within reason, which I think I'd exceeded. But if you're posting every 5 minutes what you've had for breakfast and what the coffee's like, and that you've just checked in at some coffee bar or something, then people are less tolerant, because people are busy and they don't want to know the minutiae of your life. So the testing and measuring is really, really important, and we'll come on to that in a second. But I would say that you need to be consistent, and by that I mean you're going to be talking partly about business, but also partly about just you as a person. So I had an example recently. Somebody I was following on Facebook, they were posting quite good business advice stuff, and then suddenly they started tagging me in images which were to do with multi-level marketing, which to me was inconsistent with how they'd been before, but it was also downright rude. So I unfollowed them, because I'd suddenly get tagged in this picture of something which was a money-making scheme, and something I wouldn't be involved in. Well, as you know, when you're tagged in something, it comes up that you're tagged in that, and other people see that, and I just didn't think that was really right, so I unfollowed them. You've also got to decide yourself on public-private mix of what you post. Now, I've already said I think LinkedIn is much more about business, so I wouldn't be talking about my dog training on LinkedIn unless I was in one of those dog training groups, maybe, but I'm not. So, but on Facebook and Twitter, I will occasionally put up a picture of one of the dogs, and I'll talk about that, because that makes me a more rounded individual. And it's amazing how you'll get interaction on that, because people see that you're a real person. that you're not just, somebody who does websites. Well, I don't need a website, so that's it. And I've got into conversations with people on social media over seemingly trivial things that have happened. So, but you have to be comfortable with it. People often say to me, I'm a very private person, I don't like to put things on. Well, then don't. Only share what you would be happy sharing with a room full of complete strangers, because that is effectively what you're doing. And you need to be comfortable with it. But maybe you can share a little bit more than you think. And again, it's a guideline. It's, there are no rules. Does that?
Yeah, I think that's common sense.
That's a difficult question. It is common sense, but it's surprising how many people get worked up about it.
If in doubt, just think about the analogy to real life networking. I think is the answer.
Yeah, would you stand up in front of a room full of strangers and talk about, this hobby that you have? Well, I maybe would. Other people wouldn't. It's, depends on the hobby, of course, as well. But yes, definitely, the testing and measuring, which takes us on to the proof, really. So this is the fourth of our P's, the proof. Is it working? Is what you're doing working? I'm presuming that nobody in business would put an advert in a newspaper, pay money to put an advert in a newspaper, and keep on paying that money if they didn't get a return on investment, if they didn't get more people to their website or sales to pay for it. That just doesn't make any sense. Actually, I think people do that, but it doesn't make any sense.
It's how Yellow Pages made their money, arguably, but that's another...
well, true, yes. And continue to, and Yell.com. But yes, that's more down to their aggressive sales techniques, I think. And also inertia. But really, if people thought about it, they wouldn't do it. But people spend a lot of time on social media because it's free. You see, people don't think that they're spending anything, but they're spending their time. So it has to be working. You must get a return on investment. Now, that may not be monetary. It may not be extra sales, especially in the beginning. It depends on your purpose. So if your purpose is to keep in touch with your customers as one of your, is one of your things that you're going to do, one of your aims for social media is to keep in touch with your customers, and you're getting responses from them, then tick, you've done that one. Because we know how important it is to keep in touch with the current customers that we've got, because that way they're more likely to come back and do more work with us. And again, it depends on your business. But even if they're not likely to come back and do more business with you, if they stay with you because you keep an interest, you take an interest in what they're doing, then that's worth it. Hard-nosed statistics, you're looking at something like Google Analytics, which everybody should have on their website to check, because that's free, and it's incredibly detailed and tells you when people are coming to the site, where they're coming from critically. So next to organic searching, Facebook is the next highest source of traffic for my website. And I see a peak every time I put something on Facebook. I get a little peak of interest. So, that's working. And it could be that it's sales data. If you've got an e-commerce site, are you getting people who are buying things who are coming from Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Google+, etc.? Are they coming to your website and buying stuff? Really simple, but you've got to know those numbers, or at least have a knowledge of them, because otherwise it's really easy to waste such a lot of time. And that's and that brings us on to the final ones of our P's, which is about pitfalls. So, if you're not getting a return on investment, you really need to do something about it. And the only way you're going to find is if you test and measure. And that doesn't mean you're poring over data for hours and hours. It just means keeping an eye on what you're doing. You're sending stuff out. As somebody said to me the other day, it feels like I'm just talking into a void. Well, if you're not directing them back to your website, at least for some of it, and you're not measuring, then you might as well be talking into a void. A bit like talking on a webinar.
I thought that was, didn't have to say it.
No, it is. It feels like that sometimes, but at least you're at the other end. I can hear you. That's great. And you then adjust it. So, like I did, I found that people were unfollowing me on Twitter because I was inadvertently sending out too many tweets. So I stopped doing it. It's as simple as that. It's not rocket science, Or if you find something that works, do more of that. I was talking to one of my clients today, and she runs a spa, and she was saying that she has an offer which is, it's the right way around, 90 minutes of treatment for £50. And it doesn't matter what the treatments are, you just fill up your 90 minutes. And she said, but it's really boring. But everybody wants to go for that one. I said, well, do more of it then. It doesn't matter that it's not exciting to you. And she now puts out all her offers on Twitter and Facebook, and has just opened an extra day a week because she's getting business through that channel. So she didn't market the extra day anywhere else apart from on social media, and yet they're no quieter on those days, on that extra day, than on all the other days, which I thought was brilliant. So she's obviously using it effectively. So the other problem is that if you're spending too much time, if you're spending too much time and not getting anywhere, you need to work out why you're not getting anywhere, why something's not happening. If you're spending too much time and getting results, then you can still fine-tune it even more by scheduling and automating wherever possible. So I put some examples there. Hootsuite is somewhere where you can schedule your tweets and Facebook and LinkedIn. You have a set number that are free. I can't remember, set number of profiles that are free, and then they become, they charge you a monthly fee, but I always use the free version. And so when I'm marketing something, I will sit there for an hour and put in lots of tweets that last over several weeks, and then just set it going, and I don't have to keep remembering to do it. So that's a smart way of doing something like that. You can, within Hootsuite, you can also look at when people have direct messaged you and retweeted you and so on, and reply and engage that way. So you don't have to go to Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn. You can do it all within Hootsuite. So that's a really good one to get your head around. Things like paper.li and twiner.com allow you to aggregate information. So paper.li, I found, has been really good for getting me extra followers. So with that, what it does is every day it automatically brings together lots of different stories from your followers, from people that I follow, is in my example. So people I follow, it will bring together a newspaper style web page and tweet it out automatically. Now what happens is, and this is always a bit hard to explain to people, but with that one, say I follow you, Robert, and on one of the days it says that the Just Ask Jean Daily, that's what it's called, Just Ask Jean Daily, is out, top stories by at RJ Bradley. Now, that means that you will get a notification because you've been mentioned in that tweet. And what are you likely to do when you've been mentioned in that tweet?
Retweet it.
Retweet it. So you retweet it to your followers, and that's what happens. And then some of them will go and have a look, and some of them will start following me. So I get about 7 to 10 followers extra a day through setting that up once and letting it run. I don't do anything with it at all.
Does that mean I'm actually featured? You've included something of mine, because you're not necessarily.
If it says top stories by, then the system has made you one of the top stories.
Yeah, I sometimes look for one and I can't find it because there's so much on those paper dialogue.
I know. But do you know what, Robert? It doesn't really matter.
No, because the point is I'm going to retweet it, and so you'll get more followers. I understand, yeah.
Exactly. And I think you use Twyla.com, don't you?
Yeah,
I've just started using that.
Yeah.
I'd set it up ages ago and then didn't do anything. And yeah, so Twyla.com does it the other way. It looks at what you've tweeted in different categories and puts together a newspaper-style website based on your categories.
You can also have, I think, your own domain, I'm right in saying, the tweets.yourchoice.com, so you can have a little domain on your server.
Yeah, I've got justaskjean.twyla.com.
Yeah.
Again, another place, another one of these web properties I keep talking about, to have your name. So that if somebody searches for Just Ask Jean or Jean Maund, these are likely to be there as well. And as I keep going on about this, but I think it's really, really important that you use the blog as the hub. So you've got the links out, so it's really easy for you to send stuff out, whether you do that automatically or whether you choose to do it when you write a blog post, and that other people can easily share what you've done. So having that blog as the hub is really vital, I think, to the whole scheme of things. It makes it so much easier. And you can also automate by doing old blog posts if you're careful. Use that one with caution. Is that okay, Robert?
Yeah, it's useful, yeah. I mean, I think that's, as I say, I think this leads on nicely to what you're going to talk about, was how to have fresh content for blogs, I think. If blogs are on a bit of hub.
Well, yes, it's all planned, you see. It's all part of a great master plan. Yes, I am running a workshop on the 27th of September, there we go, 6 to 9:30 in the evening, and if anybody's interested, they can get a special early bird price until the 15th of September of just £18, and it's on my main website. There's a link right on the front page, so if people want to go along and do that, and that'll be available until the 15th of September, as I say, at which time it'll then go up. It'll then double in price, so you want to get in quick and get that special early bird price. And there will be lots of goodies and extra bonuses that will come along as they're developed. But I'm really looking forward to sharing a lot of how I blog, and also I've been talking to other successful bloggers and gleaning their tips and tricks and incorporating it into what I do. But also I'm going to be sharing that on the evening as well, so really looking forward to that.
That should be good. Do you want to ask if there's any questions in the room, Jean, before we wind up?
Let's go for it. Let's see if we can work the technology.
Okay, Bev and Graham, if you want to type some text in the chat box so I can put the questions to Jean. Perhaps you could talk them through, Jean. There's a chat window at the bottom of the dashboard in the Jean.
Yeah, there is.
That's where you need to type.
They could also raise their hand if they if they want to. Maybe we can open the microphone to them. So,
yeah, Bev's just raised a hand. Yeah.
Oh, very good.
So I'll unmute. I'll unmute Bev. Okay, Bev. If you'd like to ask your question.
Hello.
Hi, Bev.
Hello, Bev.
I'm sitting here kind of listening. Hiya. Hello, hello, hello. Sitting and listening and kind of recognizing that I need to begin to be blogging, and it's brilliant kind of slide this as that's the middle, that's the point really. And then as I've kind of just typed in, basically Hootsuite is the way to go. Just consolidate LinkedIn, Twitter, and I mean I have a personal Facebook. I don't have a business Facebook at the moment. I don't use my Facebook a lot, but I guess basically I need to learn how to use Hootsuite so that I can use my time well.
Yeah, I think you need to have a business page as well, so you can separate off the activity.
Okay.
Having said that, I
had a
don't
business
separate
page.
it that much, but carry on, sorry.
I was just going to say, because I did have a business page, and but it had my name, and I realized that I then lost the personal side of it. So I'll have to go in and give it a completely different name, won't I guess, in my Facebook, because I'm not allowed.
Well, you'd have to have a Startled Chameleon page.
Yes, I think maybe that's what I need to go and do, is do Startled
But
Chameleon.
you can have as many pages as you like. So,
Okay.
you know, I could have set up a page just for business blogging secrets. I haven't, but I could have done. If it's a part of your business that you want to focus on, you can have it for that as well.
Okay. Right, okay, so I can literally do 2 or 3 business pages.
Yeah.
And then my own private one as well. Okay, I think I need to look and do that. And then once I've done that, then Hootsuite is the best way to go, really.
Well, Hootsuite will also allow you to post to different profiles. So when I set up mine, I can post it to Twitter and my own Facebook, and also the networking page and my business page, and I've got, well, I also manage several other people, but I don't post on theirs without permission. But yes, Hootsuite will allow you to do all that.
Okay. Is it fairly straightforward, Hootsuite?
Well, I think so, but in the last week 2 people have asked me to put a workshop on about Hootsuite, so maybe it's not as straightforward. Well, that was what I was thinking,
and I've had a little look, but I get slightly blinded by it for a while until I get used to it. So so that's what I was just thinking. Why not a webinar or a whatever?
Well, maybe a webinar on Hootsuite is something that we can look at. Definitely.
Oh, I would pay. But yeah.
Bless you.
Oh, I know, but it's good to do things free, but I also know we have to live, don't we, as well? As long as it's a reasonable thing. Okay, thank you. I'll when I have a brain cell free, I'll go and do some more Facebooking things.
Brilliant.
Thanks.
That's great. Thanks, Bev.
Yes, thanks.
It's been really good tonight. Thank you.
Okay, yes, thanks. I'm glad it's been. Yeah, I think that's a bit of a interesting point about how much you do yourself and how much you get other people to do. I think you need to look at the opportunity cost of your time and perhaps give it to someone like yourself to do, Gene, at some point. It just needs to recognise when that point is.
Yeah, I think, you know, things like technically setting stuff up, that's fine to outsource to somebody else. I have a real problem with people who outsource their actual social media, because, and people are always asking me to do it. Will you do my Facebook for me? Will you tweet for me? And I keep having to turn away business because for me it would be like turning up at a party and pretending to be somebody else. I don't know your business as well as you do. I don't know what you would need to do. I can help you, but as for the day-to-day tweeting and Facebooking, I think people have got the wrong idea that it's just something else that needs to be done and therefore get somebody else to do it. And unless you're in a bigger business where you can delegate that, but then that's not so much social. You know, I'm sure the head of Coca-Cola does not do his own Facebook page. But we're talking a different league there.
Yeah, I think it's distinction I make there is brand, corporate brand v personal brand. You don't want to represent somebody else's personal brand, do you? Which you could potentially do.
No, exactly.
If you were tweeting for them.
Exactly.
Yeah, you could end up in trouble, and they would be very upset because you think you're doing the right thing, couldn't you? So, yeah, it's not that helpful.
Well, I don't think it comes across well either, because I'm not going to be doing the personal stuff.
No.
Okay.
You can know all of my stuff, and yeah, no, I think you're right. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, Jean. Well, thanks so much for featuring in tonight's webinar.
Thank you, Jean. Yay.
Yeah. I just one of interest, Bev. Are you using a separate speaker and microphone, Bev?
I'm not. I haven't plugged it in, so I could and should. Is the quality okay?
I'm getting a bit of feedback, and I presume it's from your.
Yes, it's got to be, because I've got a Mac and I haven't plugged it in. So
Okay.
hang on, let me just plug it in so you can see what you think. One moment. I got lazy and just listened to it on the speakers. Is that better?
Yeah, that's better. There's no feedback now. Just
Perfect.
a bit of a test. Sorry, thanks for that, Bev.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jean, yes.
Okay, that's cool.
Just want to wrap up, and thanks, Jean, for being joining me in this webinar. It's been fascinating. I'm sure we'll have another one soon about Hootsuite or something else, because this is probably just lots of things we can do with this.
Mm-hmm.
So that's great.
Definitely.
Thank
No,
you.
it is a good way to share the information.